I am so good. Oh, the week of my life, man.
The week of your life. That sounds quite extravagant. So, well, what's been going on?
Just anytime, you make these albums and then you record them and then you master them and then you sit on them and you wait. So by the time you go to put it out, you're kind of nervous. And so the reaction has been incredible. So that feels really good.
That's good. That's good. So I should introduce myself. I'm Ian. My name's down the bottom there. I'm from Hi-Fi Way in Australia.
Awesome.
So, thank you. So obviously you've got just mention it there. You got this new album out, the 8th album in 17 years.
Scary, yeah.
That's quite a strike rate, man. That's not Metallica or Guns N' Roses. That's quite a strike rate.
Yeah.
So I mean, taking that into account, and you had the 2 EPs as well, I think, in between the last album. How are you guys able to still be so creative so frequently?
Honestly, especially for this record, I will give all the credit to John Gehring, our keyboard player. He produced the record. He wrote most of the songs on the record, along with Mike on lyrics. And he's such a driven dude. He loves music. He consumes it all the time. He went to school for music, and he's worked on everything from Papa Roach to A Day to Remember to One OK Rock. He does production and basically like keyboard layers for all those kind of bands. So this is the first project he produced for us was our last record, The Act, but this is the first thing that he's totally spearheaded and did essentially all on his own. And so it's just a testament to like what someone that is that insanely creative can do. So I think it always feels like you're really unlucky when it's happening, but we've been sort of lucky to like lose and gain so many members, because that just means there's always like fresh ideas and fresh perspectives. And Mike and I are pretty open-minded on working with all kinds of different people. So that just makes it easier.
Well, you've actually kind of answered my next question, which was the how to evolve from album to album. With that such a short turnaround, as you mentioned, I think, is this the first album with a new bassist as well?
Yeah, so he was actually on our last EP, Zombie 2, but this is his first full-length album, and definitely the most like involved that he's been creatively in a really cool way. He is a psychopath.
Good. So you touched on it earlier as well. I mean, the Color Decay, it's been out in Australia. I think it's been out worldwide now for about a week and a bit. My own review of it was that I've got it down as, and I'm not saying this just because you're sitting there, and Janine's probably listening as well, but I genuinely wrote down that for me it's one of the genuine contenders for album of the year.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, because it's a great piece of work. I don't feel there's any weak point on the album either. Like every song just seems to just flow very nicely. That's my feedback, but what's the feedback that you've been receiving? Well, because I know you've been on tour as well. So what's the feedback you guys have been getting?
That's honestly been it. That's why it's so overwhelming. Honestly, I'm still kind of struggling to process. I knew I loved the record. I've been getting these songs from John, kind of blasting them in my truck here for probably a year and a half now. And I kind of described it to him on a lot of the songs as like, this is my favorite genre of music. It's really aggressive and heavy at times, but it's mostly just moody, and it's really honest emotionally. Yeah, that's been all the feedback. And I think for some reason we just seem really tapped into a sort of brutal honesty about the way we've been feeling for the past 5 years of our lives, and just expressing that in a way that a lot of other people in their 20s and 30s feel really connected to. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Talking the 2 points you mentioned there, I'll go into one of them, which is the how you've been feeling over the last 5 years. The notes that came through before I listened to the album was about mental health issues and just generally getting old, which we all do. Time doesn't stop for anyone. And songs like "Broken" obviously stand out because that's obviously quite the radio-friendly song. I think even things like 25 as an example give that impression as well about getting older. I mean, do you, when you're singing them songs, do you relate into them personally, even though it's Jonathan and Mike who've written them?
Yeah, there's some things on there in particular that have been directly influences by things I'll tell them, or emotions I'm getting from the song that will adjust into that meaning. But even more beyond that, like if the song feels resonant with something I'm feeling, the only way to really authentically sing it, I'm alone in the booth by myself. We don't have a glass window. We kind of just built these little booths, in these bedrooms at these houses we were recording in. So I'd be in there by myself, and just have a lava lamp on or something. And I kind of would go into a state where I was really honestly resonating with what the lyrics meant to me, and really dark personal moments I've had, and really emotional things. And I tried to inject that into it. And as soon as I was really emotionally honest, that's when he started going like, yes, that one, keep going, do more of that. So it's painful, but it feels good to release that kind of stuff in a healthy format like that.
Which were the ones, if you don't mind me asking, which were the ones that were the most personal to you? Which songs?
Broken is very personal to me. Trapped is very personal. Cancer is incredibly personal. I lost my mom a couple years ago, so, and it was a rough like 4 or 5 years getting to that point too. And so, I was like on tour during most of it, and spending most of my time off tour dealing with that stuff. And so I had just a lot of pain to put into this by the time we got there. So I was pretty honest with a lot of those emotions, and those songs in particular, I think it comes through on there.
Interesting you mentioned Trapped. I mean, I wrote down some songs that had just one words next to them, and Trapped I had next to Sacrifice, as the word I had next to them was catchy, which goes back to a point you made earlier as well about the contrasts that are on the album. I mean, lyrically, it seems to come across as quite somber and melancholy, but musically, it's full of life. Like, it's vibrant, it's big, it's dynamic, there's fucking shit going on everywhere. I mean, that's a fine line to tread. So was that planned as well before you went in, or was it just, here's the music, throw lyrics on top?
Yeah, it was planned. Like usually John's not going to send me something unless he has even like a pretty good idea of at least a baseline for what the song should be about, and then him and Michael dig in and really kind of craft a narrative around it. But I think some of our favorite music is like a super depressing subject, but then the music itself is bright and grabs you and is hooky. I know like most of the music that we grew up on, whether it's My Chemical Romance or Take Back Sunday, and all these bands that are super brutally honest about the way they're feeling, the song because it's like so good and so catchy and so poppy, but it's so depressing of content. So yeah, it was pretty intentional, I guess.
Oh, that's good. I do have to ask this one, because the two songs that stood out to me, I haven't checked your set list to see whether you're playing them live or not, but in my mind, when I was doing the album review and visualizing the songs, Watchtower and Time, I would imagine that they would be great live. Is that the feeling you're getting?
Honestly, yeah. So we played on our last tour, we did a zombie tour in the States, and we played Sacrifice, Salt, Watchtower, and Time. And I think Watchtower is probably a highlight moment of the set. It was honestly explosive from start to finish. And like by the time it hits that breakdown, the I Chose the Distance riff, it's just the whole crowd was singing it back to us. And we just started to look around at each other. We go, a new song? Like, when's the last time a new song went off like that? So yeah, good eye. They were both really good.
Yeah, that's excellent. At least I had the right visuals there then. I think I wrote in the review that Watchtower, it just made me feel like that's a circle pit waiting to happen. Just everyone's just going mental.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about Jonathan. It's his second album producing there. So this album is would this album then be mostly his influence? Like mostly his ideas?
I would say musically, 100%. No, well, not. I would say musically, yes, mostly his ideas, and lyrically, it's pretty split between him and Mike. I think Mike probably has a little bit more in there, but what they would do is kind of sit down and kind of work through the content of it and maybe change this verse or maybe not change that. But it's definitely what I would consider John's masterpiece at this point that I was lucky to be a part of.
You're the face of it. You're just tagging along. Yeah.
Yeah. He I will say this though, he'll get something very close and then, he has no problem of going, that part's not working. We got to delete that. Let's change that to this. This melody isn't gripping. This subject matter is dull. He doesn't take offense at all. He's very like collaborative in that kind of process.
Well, that leads to another point. As a band, you've always been lumped in with metalcore, and I'm not a big fan of putting bands in boxes because I think that's quite restrictive. This album, though, for me, isn't metalcore. Like, don't get me wrong, there's elements in there. I mean, the opening track Exhibition is certainly there, but there's a lot more that there. So how would you describe your band now and this album?
I think we obnoxiously use that moniker just because so many people have like given us crap for it since the very beginning of our band. And so it feels almost like cheeky to just continue to insist that everything we do is metalcore, even when it really obviously isn't. But I guess to me, I would describe it more of like a rock record in that its influences are all over the place. And that's kind of what makes rock music rock, whether it's Limp Bizkit or Sum 41 or Nirvana or Pink Floyd. Like, to me, rock music is just more aggressively leaning and just from the other side of pop music. So I'd say it's a rock record. And I think part of the other reason I say that is we started to hear things, during the pandemic that like the rock record is dead. There's like pop has already moved on, hip hop has moved on. Rock musicians need to stop making full albums. And I think we really took offense to that as people who like making albums. And we were like, screw that. We're going to make an album that you can't just listen to the singles of. You have to listen to the whole thing. It's meant to be digested in that format. So,
yeah, definitely. You're touching on earlier about recording as well. So you guys went off into the desert, whereas the act you recorded in Massachusetts, I believe, which is, I mean, I've been to America a few times. That's two different parts of the world.
Yeah.
But what impact does, or what influence does being isolated in a desert where it's probably hot and dry have that's different from previous albums?
I think it just gives you the freedom to be authentically creative. That's so cheesy to say, but like our workflow when we were in Boston was we would walk from the house we had rented to the studio, and it feels like you're going to the office every day. And so you have to work while you're there. And then when you're not there, you can't really be that creative. When we lived in this immersive house, like, you could just walk outside, look up off the balcony. I'd be out there, every couple hours with John, just having a cup of coffee and be like, how's it going? He's like, oh, we just did this. And you're just looking at mountains, 360 degrees around you, the sun's blazing down. It feels like you can do whatever you want. And we had all the time in the world. Whereas, it's a little more rigid when you're in a studio. So I don't know if we'll ever go back to the traditional studio format. I think doing drums there obviously makes sense. You need a nice room, but for everything else, I can't imagine it. It's just too constrictive.
Okay. Because I've only got 5 more minutes. If I'm correct, I believe the last time you were in Australia was with Miss May I about 4 or 5 years ago. Is that right?
That sounds right. Yeah. Too long, whatever it was. My goodness.
yeah. I remember going to the show and I'm thinking, you haven't been back since. I wasn't sure. So obviously we're in Australia. So what plans do you guys have for Australia, if any?
We literally told our agent, like, I just had a meeting with them. We played this like rock festival, and I was like, we will be in Australia in 2023. I don't care where or how or why it happens, but we have to go. So that's the top of our bucket list for 2023 is coming over there. So I think they're working on it right now, and I was meeting with one of the Australian promoters over there. I was like, bring us over. So I think they're cooking it up right now.
Good, good. And hopefully when you come over, it'll be decent weather. So around about this time next year might not be so bad. Just put that
Yeah, no kidding.
into, it's coming into summer then, you see, so it's not too bad. Well, look, then basically that's pretty much my lot. I've 16 minutes actually. Do you have anything else you want to add about the album?
I don't know. It's funny thinking about Australia because one of the best tours we ever did over there was for an album, Dead Throne. We came over and did a Dead Throne tour. That was John's first tour with us ever. And we just fell immaculately in love with them. And it's funny to think this record feels like the first time since that album that we've really put out something we've wholeheartedly believe in from start to finish, and that we want to go play live. So I'm like, I want to get back to Australia immediately. I want to play these songs, and like, I want to play our new zombie songs. Like, it's the pandemic kind of put a damper on international travel, and we're just about to leave for Europe in a couple of days. So yeah, I got to get down under, man.
Because just before we go, because you've been playing in America, if I'm correct, you've been doing both zombie EPs in full on the recent tour, is that right?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's gone very well.
Yeah. It seems like it might go over well in Australia too, to be honest with you.
Like, of course it will. Of course it will. Like, I know there's a lot of people hanging out to see you guys here, and I certainly push the album out to as many people as I could as well to listen to, because as I said at the top, I have it down as genuine album contender of the year. I might even say this, I think it's better than Parkway Drives. I'm just putting it out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's high praise from an Australian, especially.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. Well, otherwise, I know you're fairly busy, so I'll let you go, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, man. Let's meet up and have a pint or something when we're over there. I'd love to.
Guaranteed. I'll see you then, Jeremy. Thank you.